May we remind you that for the convenience of those patrons who prefer not to smoke, seating areas on the right-hand side of this auditorium have been designated as no smoking areas. Your cooperation is appreciated.
Zeke Pinheiro, I wanted to interview you because I'm impressed with your short film Mother, and because you created the wonderful fun size horror website. Now, are you ready for my questions?
Thanks. I'm really glad that you like what we do. Yeah, hit me with your questions.
Is there a horror film that you've seen that you would never sit through again because it tattooed your soul?
I don't think I could ever sit through Rogerio Deodato's cannibal film, Cannibal Holocaust. That movie from start to end is just sleaze. I don't mean that as a critique of the movie. I mean, it is, just a grimy, dirty watch that makes you feel so just, dirty watching that film. I mean, it's really effective filmmaking, but everything from, the animal butchering to the last shot of the movie, which is something that haunts me on a regular basis. It's just a movie I can never bring myself to return to. The whole Italian cannibal genre is something that I have difficulty sitting through. There's certain levels of cruelty that's really tough to get through, but you watch it because it's educational for sure.
Now, that is an understandable choice. Make sure you watch my video review for Cannibal Holocaust, and you can add your own red bar % rating underneath my video review on my website. Zeke, how and when did your respect for the horror genre start?
I'd have to say my respect for the horror genre started really early. When I was a kid, I think most kids are. They're they're fascinated by the taboo and they're fascinated by the macabre. And my parents wouldn't allow me to watch horror movies, but I had a babysitter named Anna, and she would watch me on Saturday nights, and usually the Friday night before, she went and saw the newest release, this was during the 80s, so this was during the height of the slasher era, and just horror. There was a horror release, it seemed like every week, and I would make her tell me every single detail of those movies, getting every plot point, every gory detail, as it were.
I like that. Getting an adult to tell you about the forbidden. Talk to me about 3 of the most inspiring horror films you've witnessed and explain why.
Yeah, the 3 horror movies that I find the most inspiring are, to go back to what I was saying about my babysitter who would tell me about these horror movies, I would kind of build them all up in my head as to what they were. And when I was finally old enough to go out and rent them and watch them for myself, there were only 3 that actually, exceeded what I could have possibly have come up with. To this day, if somebody described those movies to me, I still couldn't come up with anything near as brilliant as Return of the Living Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street 3: The Dream Warriors, and Aliens. Aliens, it's the most, it's I know it's action, but it's also horror, and it's one of the most viscerally exciting movies I have ever seen, in terms of film grammar, in terms of maintaining, spatial sense, the speed of it, the use of practical effects, the imagination that went involved in creating those practical effects and making them so realistic on camera. It's still one of the most incredible viewing experiences watching. I had the joy of seeing it at the New Bev a couple years ago, and it's still one of the, just hands down best movies ever. Return of the Living Dead, its mixture of comedy and horror, its tone, its punk rock aesthetic, its social commentary. It's easily, for me, my favorite zombie movie. I remember my babysitter, Anna, telling me the line, "Send more brains." And it's still, and when it was delivered in the movie, it lived up to what I had built up. And then 3, Dream Warriors. That movie delivers on all of the promise of the Nightmare on Elm Street genre. That movie delivers on all of the promise of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It is Freddy is finally, he's got his personality, but he hasn't become a yuckster yet. He's still a threat. The imagination that went into the kills, it's just, like I said, it is the definitive Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
A very cool choice of 3 films. You're like this. I've got this in my collection I've had for years. It's the actual original VHS tape of Aliens, and you can see the suggested selling price is £74.95. Bleeding memories. Now, Zeke, what was the last horror film you watched that was really disappointing?
The last horror movie I saw that was really disappointing. I don't know, that's a tough one because to be honest, I'm not very comfortable, slagging on another filmmaker's work. I can say that, I just don't, I never like it when I watch a movie and I see that there's a, when I see that there's more thought put into how they're going to kill someone in a movie as opposed to why they are dying in that movie. I'm a firm believer in, the real horror is watching people you care about suffer. And whenever I see a movie that is just, basically just has characters that are there just to die in grotesque ways without giving me a reason to care, I just always find that very, disappointing. But yeah, I wish I could be more specific. I'm never very comfortable talking about another filmmaker's work because I know how much hard work goes into there, and even if it's something that I don't like, I don't. I know how hard it is, to make a movie, and I'd hate to come out and disparage somebody else's work because it's all just taste.
You started out as an editor. Do you find it difficult to lose yourself watching any filmed work because you're constantly thinking about the editing?
If the story's good, I don't lose myself in it. I don't actually like the best editing is when I'm not, when I don't notice it. Yeah. So it really depends on the movie. I also game master RPG for some friends, and so I'm also thinking about everybody's actions in terms of dice rolls. Sometimes it's tough to shut your brain off, depending on what the movie is. But editing is it's like a good special effect or a good computer generated effect. If it's really good, you don't notice it.
Absolutely. Inconsiderate behaviour in cinemas, snacking, texting, talking. Zeke, do you suffer from cinema rage?
I don't know if I suffer from cinema rage. My fiance might attest that I do. I have been known to yell out at people for behaving in inconsiderate fashion. I have not taken to public drubbings yet of these people, but depending on how excited I am for a release versus how much of an a-hole they're being. I guess I could.
Yeah, everyone has their own bullshit threshold, especially when it comes to inconsiderate behaviour. During the film story creative process, sometimes the best suggestions can come from people that aren't involved in the industry. Have you ever given a scenario to someone and their unexpected suggestion energised you to take your story onto another level?
Yeah, I mean, it's, when it comes to the creative process, I always think that, not being precious with your material and being open to those suggestions and changing, your direction based on what seems to be the most true for the story. I honestly, I can't think of a specific time where that's happened, but, just because I think it happens a lot. I think it happens on everything, I work with. And yeah, I'd listen to anybody. I do listen to people that aren't in the film industry. I listen to people that are in the film industry, regardless, and it doesn't matter if they're a producer or a director or a PA. If a good idea is a good idea. I think it's one of the reasons why I created Fun Size Horror is because I know so many, I'm very lucky to know so many really smart people that have a great sense of story, and they I wanted to kind of create a platform that would allow them to tell their own stories and let that their vision for things be seen, because a lot of times in the industry the industry tends to work to keep people from making things, it feels like. But yeah, to kind of bring it back around, I can't think of a specific instance, but yeah, definitely. If you know your story, you know the truth of it, and sometimes you follow paths in development when you're in your own head that are taking you down the wrong course. And if you get that suggestion that suddenly steers you right back on track, your story will wind up at the level that it was always meant to be. But the goal is that you never be precious about yourself, but be precious about your story. Know what is why you love it, and sometimes you may not be able to articulate it, but listening to other people who might be able to articulate it better for you is always something you should do.
Brilliant answer. I feel exactly the same way. Now, are you disheartened by the current film trailer trend to give away the plots?
I'm disheartened by film marketing in general. But I mean, it's as a filmmaker, I think that that's just kind of the bag of most filmmakers is to be disheartened by film marketing. But yeah, it's never good when a trailer gives away the plot of a movie. And yeah, I don't like it. I try to avoid trailers as often as I can. It really depends on the kind. Like if it's big action spectacle, I usually check out the trailer. But if it comes to a horror movie, I try to stay away as much as possible from trailers to go in fresh and not have any sort of idea what I'm going to get. I remember when my friend brought over Old Boy, and I had no idea what it was. The original Park Chan-wook film, and just watched it and just I always try to like replicate that experience of just sitting into a movie and not having any clue what I'm going to get.
I'm the same when it comes to horror trailers. I just avoid them. I like the creative film talent in Australia, and the same goes for some Korean and Japanese horror films. Is there any horror films you've watched that you recommend, something that's not on the usual radar?
That's a really good question. I'm sure I'm so behind on movies, but I mean, I'm a huge fan of everything that's coming out of South Korea, or everything that's been coming out of South Korea for the last 10 years or so. I think they have a really thriving film community. Um, I'm really hoping there's been like this influx of amazing Taiwan uh, of action films from Taiwan, and I'd love to see some horror stuff from them. They're so innovative with their camera work. If there is, somebody yell at me in the comments. And I'm sure your audience is anything I can name. I'm sure your audience knows about. But yeah, The Host is easily one of my favorites that have come out. Not so recent years at this point, but yeah, I love that movie.
Nice one. Your very short film Mother, without giving anything away, how did the idea come to you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting, in the coffee shop where I kind of created Fun Size Horror and then I was kind of scripted out these different ideas for horror shorts that I had. And Mother was very simple. I just kind of had the idea of a certain image, and when you watch the short, if you do, you'll know which one it is. But I was like, what would be the most horrifying thing you can see on a certain piece of medical equipment, and it was that, and yeah, it was just one of those like what's grosser than gross things that kind of came to your head.
Wonderful. Now that is creative magic, and you all must watch Zeke's short horror film Mother, and you can watch it either on my website bleedingcritic.com with me introducing it, or you can watch it at the Fun Size Horror website funsizehorror.com. And talking about Fun Size, Zeke, here's your chance to talk and plug Fun Size Horror, so go for it.
Cool. Thank you for this chance, Bleeding Critic. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Fun Size Horror is a place for filmmakers to get their work shown, and for audiences to enjoy some short form horror content. Fun Size Horror started as a collective of filmmakers that were all helping each other make films, and the only thing that I could promise any of them when putting this thing together was I would work my ass off to help them get their short out there into the world. And I have a couple of really awesome producers, and we maintain that promise to this day. We still make our own original horror content, but also our website is a place for you to submit your own shorts, and we'll do whatever we can to help the world see your work, because if you put in the blood and sweat and tears of making a horror movie, we want to help the world see it so that they can appreciate your hard work.
Nice one. We certainly share the same bleeding values. Is there anything horrific you're working on that you'd like to mention?
Yeah, there are a few wonderfully horrific things that we're working on. We're still continuing to create new material for the website for funsizehorror.com. And we're also, creating Fun Size Horror content that goes beyond the website. There's a few things I can't get into too many details on, but some really exciting stuff. And we're really working to, bend and twist and see how much we can push the boundaries of horror with what we got coming down the pike.
Very exciting. I wish you and your team all the best for the future with Fun Size Horror. Now, Zeke, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me?
Yes, Bleeding Critic. I do have a question for you. What movie that is not a horror film had content in it that tattooed your soul?
It will be that moment from American History X when Edward Norton's character forces that guy to place his mouth on a curb, and then he curb stomps him from behind. And that is a moment and an image that I'll never forget. You can also watch Zeke's horror memory and his horror therapy now at bleedingcritic.com.